Hello, Greywolfe family. Without question, the number one concern we hear from clients is this. Why isn't there more activity in my store? Why aren't we buying more products? What's the holdup? And honestly, those are all very fair questions. They're not offensive questions. They're not unreasonable questions. They're questions I would ask if I were also sitting in your seat. But the hard part is this. There isn't one clean, simple answer that applies to every single storefront. There isn't one villain that I can singularly point to. And there isn't one single event, one single policy, one single mistake, or one single decision that explains everything. The reality is, it has been a combination of factors. Some were internal, some were industry-wide, some came directly from Amazon themselves. Some were caused by the aftermath of a business model that Amazon itself decided it no longer wanted to support. And some were simply the growing pains of taking a company through a complete transformation while the platform we operate on was changing underneath us in real time. Now, anybody who knows me knows I'm not big on excuses. I don't make them in my marriage. I don't make them with my kids. I don't make them in my walk with Christ. I don't make them in the gym. I don't make them as a business owner. I don't make them with my team. And I don't accept them from my team, and I'm damn sure not going to sit here and feed excuses to clients, investors, and families who've trusted us with their capital. But there is a very big difference between an excuse and an explanation. An excuse is what someone gives, especially when they don't want to assume accountability. An explanation is what someone gives you when they respect you enough to tell you the truth. And that's what this video is. It's an explanation. It's not meant to sugarcoat anything. It's not meant to pretend that the last few years have been easy, because they certainly have not. It's not meant to act like every client has gotten the exact result they expected in the exact timeline that they were hoping for, or that we could even hope to give them, because that wouldn't be honest. What this is meant to do is give you context. Real context, real understanding. Context on where this company started, context on what Amazon changed, context on what we inherited, context on decisions we had to make, context on why we moved cautiously when from the outside looking in, it may have looked like we were moving slowly. And most importantly, context on where we are going from here with finite details that I can give you. Because at Greywolfe, we've always believed that an educated client is a stronger client. That does not mean you are not allowed to be frustrated. You absolutely are. If your store has not performed the way that you expected, you have every right to feel that frustration. If your capital has been sitting longer than you anticipated, you have every right to ask those questions. And if you've been looking at your store wondering why there hasn't been consistent movement, I understand that and I want to share it with you. But what I do not want is for you to feel like you're in the dark, because the dark is where anxiety grows. The dark is where people start assuming the worst, or the dark is where silence becomes louder than truth. And I don't want that for this company. I don't want that for any of you. So the purpose of this is going to bring things to you and bring light to certain situations that you might not know about. To walk you through the history, to explain what happened, to explain what's changed, to show you the decisions we made to protect the long-term viability of your asset, and to give you a better understanding of why I still believe, even after everything that we've had to fight through, that we're in the best position possible for a much stronger future than most people even realize. To really understand where we are today, though, we're going to have to go back. We have to talk about the history of the company, the history of the model, the history of Amazon's relationship with third-party sellers, the company that originally started in 2019 under the name Automation Empire that a lot of you may already be aware of. At that time, Automation Empire was operating in what became one of the fastest growing models in the Amazon space, dropshipping. For a period of time, that model worked, and it was acknowledged. And not only did it work, it helped a lot of people make a lot of money in a short amount of time. The concept was simple. Amazon had the customers, Amazon had the trust, Amazon had the traffic, and most people didn't want to spend 3 hours comparison shopping across 20 different websites. They wanted convenience. They wanted to click a button, buy the product, and they knew that it would show up because it's Amazon. So sellers were able to list products on Amazon, source those products from big box retailers or overseas suppliers, and ship them directly to the customer, i.e. dropshipping. The seller didn't have to actually hold any inventory like they do now. The management company didn't have to hold inventory at all. The client didn't need a warehouse. It was a fast, low overhead model that worked well for a window of time. But over time, Amazon started to hate it. And honestly, I understand why. There was very, very little quality control. Products were being shipped directly from third-party sources to Amazon customers. The seller often never touched the product. The management company never touched the product themselves either. And no one was actually expecting any of the items that were showing up. No one was confirming the packaging. No one was making sure that the customer experience matched Amazon's standards. Sometimes product arrived in packaging from another retailer. Sometimes orders were wrong, sometimes products were damaged because they were never verified, and sometimes customers were confused because they ordered from Amazon and received something that looked like it came from Walmart, or Target, or some other random supplier, sometimes even DoorDash. And that created a major problem for Amazon. Not just for individual sellers, but for Amazon itself. Because Amazon's entire empire is built on trust. The customer has to trust that when they buy something on Amazon, the experience will be clean, consistent, reliable, and professional. Dropshipping started to threaten that. And after explaining that, I'm sure you can see why. So by 2022, Amazon had basically had enough. They tightened their policies, they increased enforcement, they started deactivating dropshipping stores at a massive scale. Thousands of sellers were impacted. Stores were shut down for good, disbursements were frozen, tons of money was held inside of Amazon. Amazon started asking sellers for documentation that in many cases simply didn't exist or could not be obtained because of the way that the model had been structured, nor was it ever previously required. For many sellers, that was the end. Their stores were deactivated, their funds were locked, and in some cases, proceeds from certain sales were upwards of $25,000, $50,000, sometimes even $75,000 that were never recovered. That was the very moment where it became very clear to me that dropshipping did not have a future on Amazon, at least not a real one, especially not a sustainable one. Not one, at least that I would consider be willing to be built under my name, my family's name, or even my client's capital around. If this company was going to survive, it obviously had to evolve. Like any other business in any other industry, things change. It had to become something a little bit more legitimate, something that was a little bit more tangible, and something more compliant, something more operationally sound, and something built around real inventory, real sourcing, real fulfillment, real infrastructure, and a model Amazon actually wanted to support. That did mean going FBA, which many of you are aware, that's fulfillment by Amazon. So in Q3 of 2022, I acquired the company from Tommy Rodriguez and began the process of rebuilding it from ground up. And I want to be very clear about something. Very, very clear. When we acquired the company, we did not acquire a clean, easy, perfectly operating machine that was originally purchased. We inherited the entire Automation Empire book of business. And at that time, that was well over 250 active clients. Some stores were still operating, and some were struggling. Some had already been impacted by the dropshipping crackdown. Some had been suspended. Some had investors behind them who were already frustrated, confused, rightfully looking for answers that Amazon didn't even allow me to fix. And on top of that, the original contracts those clients had signed were built around dropshipping services. They weren't built around FBA. So we had to rebuild the legal structure, the operational structure, the service structure, and the client expectations around an entirely different business model that previously didn't exist. We had to go back to clients, create new agreements that reflected the new reality, and in many cases, we offered clients a conditional money-back guarantee tied to the original amount that they had paid into the business, even though much of that money that was paid before was never actually paid to my team that took over control. That was not easy to swallow. It certainly wasn't cheap. And from a purely selfish business standpoint, there were probably easier routes that we could have taken, like not offering that. But that's not how I wanted to build this company. If my name was going to be on it, then I was going to take responsibility for the transition. And in 2023, we fully retired the Automation Empire name and rebranded as Greywolfe Investing. And for those of you that do not know the story, the name Greywolfe was not random. It came from my sons, something I took pride in. Grayson Zane, my oldest son, Maxwell Wolf, my second son. That name is deeply personal to me. It represents family, It represents legacy. It represents building something that is supposed to be outliving me. It's supposed to be passed down. It represents creating something my children can one day look at and say, my father built that the right way, something that matters to me. So when people ask why I care so much about this business, it's not just a company. It's because my family's name, my children's names, and my legacy are attached to it. Now, when we made the transition into FBA, we knew it wasn't going to be easy. Nothing worth building ever is. And if you're involved with business or investments, then you already know that. We knew it would take time. We knew it would cost money. And we knew we would need warehouses, we'd need systems, employees, account managers, sourcing teams, compliance, appeals, logistics, operations, capital allocation, and a completely different level of discipline the dropshipping model ever required. What we did not know was how aggressively Amazon would continue changing the rules while we were already rebuilding the plane mid-air. And that's really what it felt like. And I don't think I can explain it any other way. It felt like a catastrophe in real time, but we were going to figure it out. We were not just moving from one model to another. We were moving from one model to another while Amazon was changing its policies, changing its enforcement, changing its standards, changing its technology, and changing the way it viewed third-party sellers altogether. So when many of you signed on to building a wholesale FBA store, you probably heard me or someone on our qualification team talk about confidently about the roadmap. And I want to say this and be very, very clear about it. At the time, that roadmap was real. It was not made up. It was not a sales pitch built on fantasy. It was based on data, experience, history, and what we had worked for years in the wholesale FBA space, specifically the wholesale FBA management space. The model was straightforward. We'd build facilities that met or exceeded Amazon's expectations, which we very much did. We sourced from US brand distributors and suppliers that Amazon recognized. We used documented invoices that, again, we were well ahead of. We built category approvals properly. We started conservatively, and a lot of people would say too conservatively. We focused on order history. We built trust with the platform. We prioritized volume, account health, before aggressive profit. And we avoided unnecessary risk to protect the stores. And we grew the accounts the right way. That was the playbook. And for a long time, that playbook worked. But then Amazon changed the field yet again. Suppliers and distributors that had been acceptable for years suddenly became a problem. Vendors that Amazon had trusted were suddenly rejected. Sources that had supported legitimate FBA inventory were blacklisted with little to no explanation at all. And they didn't come out and say it, they just stopped accepting it, and they would penalize us for it. And then when that happened, inventory we had planned around could no longer actually be listed or sold as a result. That created delays, it created losses, it created inactivity. It created frustration for clients who were expecting movement, even us that were expecting movement. And in many cases, it forced us to go all the way back to the drawing board after weeks or even months of planning for several of your storefronts. The same thing happened with ungating. For those who may not be familiar, ungating is the process of getting Amazon's approval to sell certain brands, categories, sometimes even products for years. There was a fairly reliable process. It could be tedious and it could be, let's call it for what it is, very annoying. Sometimes it required small test orders. Sometimes it required products being shipped to clients' addresses. Sometimes it required invoices, pictures, paperwork, and patience. But more often than not, if you followed the process correctly, it did work. And the more categories or products your store became approved to sell, the more flexibility and opportunity your store had and that Amazon would offer you. And then Amazon changed that too. They started rejecting wholesalers, regional suppliers, and co-ops that had previously worked. They would deny applications without clearly explaining what was wrong, with like little to no information actually at all. It was like playing pin the tail on the donkey and keeping the blindfold on at all times. They would ask for additional documentation, then reject the documentation without giving a clear path to cure the issue. And in some of the most frustrating situations, Amazon would approve an application, allow the store to move forward, and then later revoke the approval they are the ones that reviewed and gave us. Sometimes after purchasing decisions had already been made and we were forced to sit on the inventory for those original approvals. That is a dangerous environment to operate in. I don't have to explain that to you. You know, if it doesn't move, it doesn't sell, it doesn't make any of us money. Because when you are managing someone else's capital, you cannot just say, well, Amazon approved it today, so let's throw a massive order at it and hope they don't change their mind tomorrow. That doesn't put any of us in a good situation. That is not proper stewardship. That is gambling. And I was not willing to gamble with your money just to create the appearance of activity. Another major issue that we had to deal with, especially through 2024 and into 2025, was that when Amazon calls risky relationships or linked accounts without getting too technical, Amazon systems became flagging accounts that appeared to be connected. Why? Because the same Greywolfe team members that were logging into multiple clients' accounts from the same office, from the same general locations, and in some cases using overlapping access points, to Amazon's automated systems, that could look like one person or one organization secretly owning multiple seller accounts, which is not allowed. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was simple. These were separate clients, separate businesses, separate owners who had chosen the same management company, which is allowed. That's it. But Amazon's AI-driven systems did not always understand that distinction. So accounts were suspended, appeals had to be filed. Our team had to prove what should have been obvious, that shared management doesn't mean that it's shared ownership. And in many cases, we're very successful to get them out, but it still created constant delays. It created account reviews, it created uncertainty. It created months of battling an automated system that was not mature enough to understand the structure it was reviewing. To reduce those false positives, we started using proxy servers and rotating IP addresses. At that time, there was a practical solution to a real problem. It helped avoid accounts being incorrectly linked together, but eventually, as I'll explain, that solution created a different problem all of its own. So by late 2024, after a lot of research, conversations, trial and error, and internal analysis, we came to the conclusion that the long-term answer was Amazon Service Provider Network, or what some of you guys may know if you've been following the journey, the SPN. The SPN is Amazon's vetted network of third-party service providers. And in simple terms, it is Amazon saying, these are companies we have reviewed, companies we recognize, and companies that we are comfortable with connecting sellers with. For us, that mattered a lot because it was going to solve a lot of issues. Because so many of the issues we were fighting, supplier concerns, application denials, account access issues, linked account problems, appeals, compliance reviews, all that pointed back to one thing. Amazon needed to recognize Greywolfe as a legitimate service provider operating above board. So we pursued SPN status aggressively, very, very aggressively. It was not easy. It took months. We had to provide documentation. We had to answer lots of questions. We had to explain our structure. We had to satisfy Amazon's review team. We took various and vigorous amount of video calls. We had to adjust, respond, clarify, and just keep pushing through the process. And eventually, that work finally paid off. Amazon admitted Greywolfe into the Service Provider Network. Our company information was published directly onto Amazon.com, which you guys can find us, and our professional services were also listed for Amazon sellers. And that was a major milestone for us. It was a huge one. But here's the part most people do not understand. Getting into SPN was not the finish line. It was the beginning of another very difficult transition, because in order for our managed stores to fully benefit from that status, those stores had to be migrated into Amazon's Solution Provider Portal, or what some of you guys might know that have already been accepted into it, the SPP. And by April 10th of 2025, third-party sellers and service providers were not properly migrated would lose access to Seller Central, which is why Amazon dropped so many sellers last year. That created a massive operational bottleneck. We had somewhere between 150 and 200 active FBA accounts that needed to be migrated. But we didn't get to control the speed. We didn't get to control the order. We could not tell Amazon, move this store first or prioritize that client. That was completely out of our hands. Some weeks, Amazon would migrate 7 or 8 stores. Other weeks, absolutely nothing moved. And it was just follow-up email after follow-up email and conversation after conversation. There was no predictable rhythm. And so there was no reliable timeline. And while other stores were waiting to be migrated, we were limited in what we could safely do inside those other accounts. So we were stuck in the middle, yet again. We had done the work to earn the SPN status, and we were moving in the right direction, but the actual migration process was slow. It was inconsistent and largely outside of our control. And at the same time, as more stores were migrated into the new portal, we became less dependent on the proxy servers we had previously needed. But that created another issue. Our IT vendor had been charging us based on server usage. As we needed less server capacity, they made less money. Eventually, that vendor abruptly cut us off. No warning, no real cause. And this happened while we were still roughly 25 to 30 stores waiting to be migrated. That left us in a position where we could not safely access those remaining accounts until Amazon completed their migration. Tough place to be. So again, from a client's perspective, it may have looked like nothing was happening, but behind the scenes, we were fighting through a platform transition, a compliance transition, a technology transition, and an access issue all at the same time. So for you, the client, the result of all this has been painful, and I know that because I also was going through it with you, working night and day and losing lots of hours of sleep. It has meant delays, it's meant inactivity, it's meant stores sitting longer than anyone ever wanted, it's meant months, and in some cases, far longer without the level of performance that you expected or what we expected based off of what we knew. And I'm not going to minimize that because minimizing it would be disrespectful. You invested because you wanted activity and you wanted growth. You wanted a return. You wanted an asset to a platform that was set to perform. That is completely reasonable. But what I need you to understand is that over the last 24 months, Amazon has put the entire third-party seller world through a level of change most people on the outside simply just do not see, nor would they ever put up with. And that was the policy changes, the AI enforcement, the supplier rejections, the ungating reversals, account reviews, linked account suspensions, what am I missing? SPN migration, the SPP access issues, distributor instability, inventory risks, and honestly, through all of that, we had a choice. We could have forced activity just for the sake of looking busy, and we could have spent capital recklessly, and we could have purchased products from suppliers we were not fully confident in. We could have submitted applications the old way and hoped they worked. We could have thrown inventory into accounts just to show screenshots and movement. We could have operated like nothing had changed, but that would be irresponsible. And eventually, it would have hurt you more because activity without strategy is not progress. Movement without protection is not leadership, and spending your money just so we can say that we spent it is not management. I'd argue it's actually negligence. So yes, we were cautious, and in some cases, probably too cautious. But I would rather sit here and explain to you why we protected your capital than sit here and explain to you why we lost it. I would rather take criticism for moving carefully than apologize for gambling with your investment. Because once Amazon seizes inventory, suspends an account, rejects a supplier, revokes approval, or locks down disbursements, the damages can be very, very difficult to undo, sometimes impossible. So we made the decision to protect the asset first, protect the account health first, to protect the capital first, to protect the long-term viability of the store first. That may have not always looked so exciting, excuse me. It may have always looked active, but it was the responsible decision. I want to be clear about something else too. I am proud of the fact that Greywolfe is still standing. I am proud that we are a member of Amazon's SPN and brand management service. I am proud that the stores under our management have been migrated onto the platform. I am proud that our accounts are not being deactivated for policy violations, the way that so many other stores were in the old dropshipping world, or still to this day, which people are losing their livelihoods. I am proud that when accounts do experience temporary issues, whether from inactivity or identity verifications, inventory reviews, or even account health triggers, we have the ability, the knowledge, experience to respond quickly and effectively for you. I am proud that your inventory capital has not been carelessly burned through just to create the appearance of progress. And I'm very proud that through everything Amazon has thrown at us, we have continued adapting, we have continued building, we have continued refining the model, and we have continued strengthening compliance. We have continued moving toward a more sustainable version of this business because the goal was never to survive on old tricks. The goal was to build something real, something Amazon would recognize and something clients would rely on. And that's something that could grow beyond the chaos of just the last few years. And I believe that this is exactly what we're doing. The old model was built around speed. The new model has to be built around compliance, infrastructure, relationships, documentation, account health, long-term positioning. And after explaining all that to you, I know that it doesn't sound the most sexy. It's not sexy. It's not fast. It does not always give people the instant gratification that they want, and we all love instant gratification. But it is the difference between a company that survives and a company that gets wiped out in a single moment with Amazon's ever-changing rules. And we have seen plenty of companies get wiped out. I'm sure you have too. We have seen the influencer-led Amazon automation companies disappear. We've seen providers vanish, a lot of distributors as well. We've seen clients from other companies come to us after being misled, overpromised, or completely abandoned. And we have quite literally seen what happens when companies sell the dream but do not build the infrastructure. And I refuse to let Greywolfe be one of those companies. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us in a position where the hardest part of the transition is now behind us. Not every problem is solved. I will never sit here and tell you that Amazon is suddenly easy. It's not, and it never will be. This business will always require us to adapt. It will always require discipline. It's going to require patience. It'll require compliance. But we are no longer operating from the same position we were 2 years ago. We are not a dropshipping company trying to survive a dying model. We are not an unrecognized provider trying to convince Amazon we are legitimate. We are not stuck outside of the SPN framework anymore, and we are not guessing our way through the platform. We have made the transition. We have absorbed the hits. We have protected the capital where we could, and we have rebuilt the model. And now the focus becomes execution, not reckless execution, not forced activity, not artificial movement, but real execution. The kind that is built better on sourcing and compliance and those relationships we just spoke of, cleaner documentation, stronger account management, and more mature understanding of how Amazon actually operates today. I know some of you have been patient for a long time. I know some of you are tired. I know some of you want answers that are more immediate than what I can responsibly promise in one video, and I understand that. But what I can tell you is this. I have not quit on this company. I have not quit on your stores, and I have not quit on this model. I have not quit on the responsibility I accepted when I put my name, my family, and my children's legacy behind Greywolfe. This company has been tested. I have been tested. Our team has been tested. And while the last few years have exposed every weakness in this industry, they have also forced us to become stronger, more disciplined, and more aligned with Amazon is actually demanding from serious service providers. And that is the absolute honest truth. Not the polished version, not the easy version, just the honest one. And moving forward, that is what you can expect from me. More transparency, more education, more direct communication, and more clarity around where we are, what we're doing, what we're waiting on, and what we believe is the right path forward. Because I do not want clients who are left guessing. I want clients who understand the mission. I want clients who understand the challenges. I want clients who understand the strategy. And I want clients who know that even when the road has been frustrating, the intent behind our decisions have always been to protect the asset, protect the capital and the position of the store for long-term success. That is where we have been. That is what we have fought through, and that is why I still believe the future of Greywolfe is stronger than the past we've had to survive.
From the operator side, I want to take what was just shared and relate it to the actual work being performed, the timeline, and the decision being made behind the scenes. Well, because I understand that when you're looking at your store and you do not see the level of activity you expect, the natural questions are they buying the right products? Are they working hard for me? Are they still trying to perform? And the honest answer to all of these questions is yes. We've been buying, we've been working, we've been negotiating, and we've continued to build. And we were trying to solve problems that in many cases were continuing to morph and change while we were already in the midst of solving them. But that's the challenge presented by the fact that the whole Amazon FBA environment was shifting in real time. In September of 2024, our team attended the Amazon Accelerate conference in Seattle, Washington. During that event, we worked diligently to establish contacts with the right people within Amazon and hopefully find a pathway that would allow us to manage clients' accounts through Amazon service provider network. We were consumed by that process alone for the next 3 months until we were tentatively approved just before Christmas. The perfect present, not just to ourselves, but also to our clients. And when we finally gained the access to SPN platform, well, Amazon had already begun making an internal transition in their own software, moving from SPN to the solution provider portal. That transition was not fully ready on their side, and that was supposed to be a much smoother onboarding process. Well, it ended up dragging out much longer than expected. Some of you may recall that we reached out to you with an announcement regarding the SPN onboarding process. More than 120 clients of ours received that notification, but no sooner was it sent that the onboarding process abruptly slowed down. And that's because Amazon shifted their own internal focus heavily towards fourth quarter processing and delivery. That is important context because, well, from the outside, it may have looked like delay caused by lack of movement on our part. But internally, we were actively working through an Amazon controlled process, waiting for approvals, adapting to the systemic changes, and trying to get access to the back-end tools needed to better manage our client's account, you. Now, during that same Amazon Accelerate conference back in 2024, we had conversations with associates, executives, and team leads inside their various workshops. And that direction became very, very clear. The writing was on the wall. Amazon was changing its entire focus. The marketplace was becoming less favorable to the traditional third-party sellers model and more focused on brand owners, direct brand controls, brand IP protection, and brand-led growth. And as Amazon management company, we have always prided ourselves on building strong, enduring relationships with reputable distributors. And those relationships mattered then, and they still matter now. And we had the foresight to understand that distributor relationships alone was not always going to be enough. The market was moving towards brands, direct relationships, exclusivity, brand authorization, and brand protection. And we knew that we needed to develop the infrastructure that would show those brands that we were just not another reseller looking for products, but a serious operator capable of helping them grow while protecting what they've already built. So we came out of that event doubling down on brand exclusive and brand direct relationships. But more than that, we knew we had to build an operational structure that brands could see, evaluate, and trust. And that is how our brand management division was born. We ended the fourth quarter of that year preparing and building out an entirely new department. That department was not built overnight.
It required us to take everything we had learned from the industry, identify the right talent, invest into software, invest into training, and restructure how we approach the business as a whole. We were no longer only asking what products can we buy. We started asking what brands can we partner with? What brands need help on Amazon? What brands need better marketplace control? What brands need protection from uncontrolled third-party sellers? What brands can we help grow while also creating stronger inventory opportunities for our investors? Now that was a major shift. And while we were making the shift, another challenge started happening across the marketplace. And this was without notice. Hundreds of brands that sellers had once been allowed to sell suddenly became gated again. Many of these products were ones that our team had spent hours and hours researching before we carefully and deliberately moved forward with various ungating applications on your behalf. Our applications were approved, and we committed substantial portions of our clients' capital to acquire those products, only to have our ability to list and sell those products unexpectedly stripped away from us completely. Now, I want to emphasize this wasn't because we failed to do something on our end, or that Amazon retroactively caught deficiency in our selling applications, because that's not what happened. We had properly sourced these products. We had gone through legitimate supply chain channels. We obtained the requisite authorization and supporting documentation, and before pulling the trigger to purchase large quantities of these products, we had verified that our clients were approved to actually sell these products. But by the time these products moved through the process and were being sent into Amazon's fulfillment centers, many of those brands became restricted or gated all over again. In some cases, products were returned back to us, even though we had confirmed they were approved before buying Messed that up. In some cases, products were returned back to us, even though we had confirmed they were approved before the buying decision was ever even made. So when clients were wondering, are you buying? The answer was yes, to the tune of more than $100,000 worth of products stuck in our warehouse. The problem was not simply whether we were buying. The problem was that the marketplace dramatically changed in a short amount of time between buying, listing, and fulfillment. And as a result, our team became extremely cautious, not just in terms of compliance with Amazon's regulations and policies, but also in terms of placing your capital at risk. How could we confidently purchase products for you and spend the time and resources necessary to obtain those products and deliver them to Amazon if we couldn't be certain that the product would actually ever be listed on your storefront? Well, that's something that we ran into. And that is a big part of why this situation cannot be explained with one simple answer. Because it was not one issue, and it was not one mistake. It wasn't one department, and it wasn't only one policy. Rather, it was an overall shift in the marketplace, combined with platform-level restrictions, unpredictable brand ungating, regating, oppressive documentation, requirements that fourth quarter blackouts started to demand, onboarding delays, system transitions, and the reality that Amazon was moving more aggressively toward brand-centric environment. This was the backdrop as we attended Amazon Accelerate again last September. So it was a huge relief when at the event, we received a clear confirmation that the direction we had taken was the correct one. Everything within the last 3-day event was geared towards teaching brand owners how to partner with Amazon to build their brands, how to tell their story to Amazon's customers, how to use Amazon's tools, their advantage, and how to manage their own marketplace presence without the need to work with or rely upon third-party distributors or suppliers as a whole. These tools Amazon was releasing were designed to empower brands to do more themselves. So, once again, the writing was on the walls. Amazon's environment was changing to cater more toward brand owners, brand operators, and shifting further away from the traditional open third-party seller model that many sellers had relied on for years. That confirmed what we had already been building toward was working. And that's why, at convention after convention, trade show after trade show, we passed out our business cards. We built the contacts. We sat down with brands to learn about their products and their goals as a business. We followed up and kept trying to grow these new relationships because further down the line, it's better to have a contact in your pocket than not. And at the same time, we kept buying consistently with our current brand partners while quietly dialing back our reliance on traditional distribution channels. And slowly but surely, the work started to compound. When brands looked at the department we had built, when they saw the service we were able to provide, when they saw that and understood that Amazon's marketplace control had changed, their content, pricing, compliance, brand protection, logistics, and even account health, those conversations began to blossom into brand direct deals and discussions about exclusive product access, specifically for Greywolfe and their clients. That's the part which is hard to see from the outside looking in. A client may only see whether their store had movement that month. Which again, all those questions that you had asked, they're reasonable. But behind the scenes, a negotiation may have been going on for 3 months. A relationship may have required 6 months of courtship and follow-up. As a matter of fact, the last one that we just closed, damn, I was jumping ahead. As a matter of fact, one of our most recent successions required nearly a whole year of buildup before we finally secured the partnership and the close. But that is what it takes to move from being merely a reseller to being an agent trusted by brands. Amazon also recognized the hard work we had done and the long road we had traveled. Our name is known amongst Amazon. During a networking event, we had a discussion with one of our representatives. That conversation led to us receiving invitation-only access to Amazon's agency program. That opportunity was critically important because it gave us another way to leverage the work we had already been doing through the ESPN process and the onboarding challenges we had experienced. Eventually, that led us to being able to be manually able to submit the remainder of our clients who had been stuck outside of the ESPN platform. God, I'm fucking suffering in this one. I'm gonna restart that one. Sorry, brother. Eventually, that led us to being able to manually submit the remainder of our clients who had been stuck outside of the ESPN platform, while also gaining better back-end control for all of onboarding. That was not accidental. That came from showing up building those relationships, staying consistent, having the infrastructure in place, and proving that we were not just trying to operate stores. We were building a company capable of supporting clients, brands, marketplace partners at a much, much higher level. Now, I want to bring this back to the earlier point about buying products through a proper supply chain. With authorization in hand, only to have certain products or brands later become gated or restricted all over again. As a business, we knew that if we continued to remain, for a lack of a better phrase, a one-trick pony, we would never build the legacy we intended to build. We could not allow Amazon to unilaterally dictate whether we could perform, not perform, so we made the decision to begin testing on other online marketplaces. One example was Walmart. A long-standing client of ours believed in us and believed in the process we were developing, even amidst all of the trials and tribulations that every business owner goes through and what we've had to overcome. She decided to participate in our test run into a new marketplace. Now, I want to be very clear. Results are unique to every store, and her results are not a guarantee or an indication of future results for every client. I know you guys have heard me say this before, but what happened in her store showed us what was possible. With lower fees and broader access, the performance has been incredible to watch, and I'm excited to bring it to you. And that confirmed another important part of our strategy. Even though many of you originally signed on for an Amazon store, we do not believe your opportunity should capitalize on an online seller should be limited exclusively and only to Amazon. Our goal is to grandfather existing clients into an additional marketplace opportunities as buying capacity, product procurement, or platform access, even as volume allows. That includes Walmart, that includes Shein, that includes TikTok Shop, and that also includes other channels. I can't believe a fly just landed right in the middle of my fucking face. Yeah. God. That's crazy work. How's it sound? Yeah.
I'm watching you freelance a couple things here and there. It's good.
Our goal, fuck off. Literally right here.
Well, I was with you and you're going, I can't believe a fucking fly just landed on my face.
All right. Our goal is to grandfather existing clients in additional marketplace opportunities as buying capacity, product procurement, platform access, and volume allows. That includes Walmart, that includes Shein, that includes TikTok Shop, and that includes other channels where we believe our infrastructure and relationships can create opportunity without charging you anything additional to actually participate. With Shein, we had to go to Miami and we built that connection directly. What happened?
I'm going to make sure that the 30-minute timeline is okay. Because God forbid. Good.
There's something on the screen though. Did you do that?
That would be the iPad itself.
What is it? Oh, is it dying? I can't read it.
Yeah, but we're fine.
Okay. We're going to finish this today.
Yeah.
All right. With Shein, we had to go to Miami and we built that connection directly. Once they saw the relationships we had been forging over the last 3 years, they were eager to onboard us and provide us the necessary tools to help support our client success. With Walmart, we were able to secure inside executive access through meetings here in Florida and also in New York. And after seeing the revenues, the infrastructure, and the seriousness of our business, they are now positioned to personally onboard the clients we submit. That matters. Anybody that's dealt with Walmart before knows how difficult that can be. Because this company is no longer just trying to operate inside one channel. We are building a diverse, multi-marketplace infrastructure. Amazon, Walmart, Shein, TikTok Shop, Brand Direct, distributor relationships, brand merchant approvals, direct accounts, agency access, exclusive relationships. This is just the next chapter. And some of you have already started seeing the early signs of this. Through our efforts, some clients have already received direct accounts. You've got the email invitations. Some have already received brand merchant approvals on the back end, and you would know what that notification looks like. If you don't, you'll see it soon. Some are beginning to see opportunities that were not available at the beginning of this journey. That is what we mean when we say the work is starting to cross over to the other side. It does not erase the frustration. It definitely doesn't erase the waiting. It doesn't erase the fact that many of you rightfully expected faster movement. I'm going to redo that. It does not erase the fact that many of you rightfully expected faster movement. It does not mean every client will experience the same results at the same time, but it does show that the work was real. The strategy is real. The relationships are real. The infrastructure we've built is real. What you trusted in is real. And the direction where we choose and have previously chosen to go was not random. It was intentionally aligned with where the marketplace itself was going. Amazon moved toward brand owners, so we built the brand management. Amazon moved toward stronger control and documentation, so we moved toward direct relationships and stronger supply chain validation. Brands became more protective over the marketplace presence, so we built up our ability to be able to approach brands as a partner, not a threat. Amazon became more restrictive for traditional third-party sellers, so we expanded into additional marketplaces. And because clients needed more than activity, they needed a future path, and that is what we have been building. So when we say that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, we are not saying that as blind optimism. We are saying that because it is something now we can point to with actual data, true proof of concept for you. We can point to clients already being onboarded into opportunities that did not exist before. And we can take pride in the fact that this company made the difficult decision to evolve instead of staying stuck in a model that the marketplace was clearly moving away from. It hasn't been easy or comfortable, but it was the right decision, and it's beginning to bear fruit. We appreciate every one of you who has continued to believe in us. We understand the frustration of those who have questioned the process, and we understand that trust is not rebuilt by words alone. Trust is rebuilt by communication, execution, and results. That is what this next chapter is all about. This next chapter of Greywolfe is not about being the company we were 3 years ago. It is about becoming the company we were always trying to build, a company that can protect brands, a company that can create access for investors, and a company that can operate across multiple marketplaces. A company that can build relationships that the average seller cannot access, and a company that can turn years of adversity into a foundation for something much, much greater. That is the legacy we are building. And for those of you who have stayed with us through the hardest part, our goal is to reward your faith in us by making sure you are positioned to participate in all the opportunities that come next.